Today we discuss about open source development and implementation issues. What are the different implementation issues for developing the softwares? So the first point is open source development. What do you mean by open source development? So open source is freely available on the internet. So developers can use that code and develop the software product. So open source development is an approach to software development in which the source code of the software system is published and volunteers are invited to participate in the development process. So all the volunteers are invited to participate in the software development process. Its roots are the Free Software Foundation. This site is given which advocates that source code should not be proprietary but rather should always be available for user to examine and modify as they wish. So source code is available. By using that source code, the software can be examined or modified as they wish. So open source software extended this idea by using the internet to recruit a much larger population of volunteers developers. Many of them are also users of the code. So many of the users are voluntarily participate in the software development process. So open source systems. So there are some open source systems are available. For example, Linux, Java, Apache Web Server, MySQL, all these are the open source systems. So the best known open source product is of course the Linux. The Linux is an operating system which is widely used as a server system and increasingly as the desktop environment. So it is a Linux operating system. So other important software products are also available. One is a Java and Apache Web Server and MySQL database management system. So these are the all open source product. So open source issues are there. So should be the product that is being developed make use of a open source component. By making use of the internet, so open source you can use it, or some components in that open source you have to use for developing the software. So that is a question mark. So should be open source approach be used for the software development? So these are the open source issues. So open source business. What is the use of this open source in the business purpose? So more and more product companies are using open source approach to development. So all these are source codes are available on the internet. Many of the users or developers can use it and develop the software product. Their business model is not reliant on the selling a software product but on the selling support for that product. They believe that involving the open source community will allow the software to be developed more cheaply. This is the advantage by using that open source more quickly and will create community of user for the software. So these are advantage of using the open source in business. So open source licensing. So the fundamental principle of open source development is that the source code should be freely available. The source code should be freely available on the internet. Use it and build the software product. This does not mean that anyone can do as they wish with that code. So legally the developers of the code, either a company or an individual, still owns the code. So any one of this company or individual still owns the code. They place the restrictions how it is used by including legally binding conditions in an open source software license. So some open source developers believe that if an open source component is used to develop the new software system, then the system should also be open source. So by using that open source code by building the software product, then that system should also be open source. Others are willing to allow their code to be used without this restriction. The developed system may be proprietary and sold as a closed system. So there are three license model. One is a GNU General Public license, in short form it is written as GPL, GNU Leisure General Public License, LGPL, the Berkeley Standard Distribution License. So these are the three modes of the license. See, the first one is GNU General Purpose License, GPL. This is also called a reciprocal license. That means that if you use open source software that licensed under this GPL, then you must make that software open source. So if you use this under this license, so the developed product or developed software must be open source. The GNU Leisure General Public License, LGPL, is a variant of the first models where you can write components that link to open source code without having to publish the source of these components. So this is a LGPL. The Berkeley Standard Distribution License, this is a non-reciprocal license, which means you are not obliged to republish any changes or modifications made to open source code. You can include source in proprietary system that are sold. So these are the three license mode. One is a GPL, LGPL, BSD, Berkeley Standard Distribution. These are the three license models. So the next point is implementation issues. So there are three implementation issues. One is a reuse, configuration management, or target development. So reuse, the most modern software is constructed by reusing the existing components or system, so already available or already existing that system or components in that system. When you are developing the software, you should make as much as possible for existing code. So making use of the existing code, you have to develop the new product, new software product. So that is the first implementation issue is reuse. So another is configuration management. During the development process, you have to keep track of the many different versions of each product component in a configuration management system. So you have to keep the many different versions of each software component in configuration management system. The third issue is host target development. The production software does not usually execute on the same computer as software developed environment. Rather, you develop it one computer and execute on a separate computer. So this is a separate computer is nothing but a target system. So host target development. So whatever you develop in the software, that is a host system, and you have to execute that software product on another computer, that is also called the target system. So this is a host target development. So these are the three implementation issues. One is a reuse, configuration management, and host target management. So all these PPTs are taken from the LAN Somerville. Thank you.